pageant. We need a theme, a song, some visuals. We need, it's a pageant.
See them. Think how far we could go together, Morgan.
Where the rainbow is.
Don't you want to go where the rainbow is?
But I also know that you went to Nick's hotel this morning and talked to a desk clerk. Keep going.
They've degenerated in...
The history of the world is the history of violence. Mankind seems intent on destroying itself.
Well, Uncensored Cinefiles fans, the movie review you've all been waiting for, Eyes Wide Shut, with me and Bianca Garner as we break down Stanley Kubrick's Swan Song. So, Bianca, what did you think of Eyes Wide Shut?
What a question to start this review. Like, that's just like an impossible question to answer. I mean, I thought a lot of things, it's certainly interesting, complex film. Upon like what this is, must be like I've seen it at least half a dozen times now. So when I first watched a movie, I was just left going, feeling a bit cold, like not really getting what all the fuss was about, not really like appreciating the movie for what it was trying to say and what it was trying to show. I just thought it was a bit of a silly movie. And I did watch it like, like 18 or something, when I was first getting into like studying film. So I just wasn't really, I couldn't really reflect on it as much because obviously it's still a young adult, so it wasn't really like, I feel like this is a movie that you can watch in different periods of your life and have a different reaction to it. So
yeah, for sure. I had the same thing because when I saw it as a young man, like a younger boy, it was all just about young? Oh, I don't remember exactly, but younger. Yeah.
Did you watch it when you weren't meant to watch it?
No, I watched it like probably at like 19 or something, but I remember watching it being like, I'm watching it just to see Nicole Kidman. And,
like every boy does.
Yeah, like, but I think Kubrick did, I think that was a part of it because like the film starts out with the eye opening sequence and like your eyes open, you see a naked Nicole Kidman, and then they shut again. and then like it's just bringing you into this like voyeur, like you're the voyeur of the
Yeah.
whole thing that's taking
Yeah.
place. So you're kind of like along for the ride with Tom Cruise's character, Bill, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's certainly a movie that you get a different reading. You notice something new every single time that you watch a movie. Like I watched it this time and I spotted something I've never seen before. And I was like, I remember like sending you a video. I was really excited about it. I was like, hey, I've just spotted this. Is this?
So I wanted to get
Yeah.
into that because it ties in, it actually ties into a lot of other stuff I saw in the movie.
Okay.
And ties into research that I did back in the day, with some of my more famous documentaries. So,
Okay.
so
Yeah.
describe the lights that you saw, or maybe we should get into other stuff first and get into that a little bit later.
Yeah, maybe we should. What would be the best way to sort of approach this? Do you want to sort of talk about the movie? Because obviously the big thing is that it's showing the secret society, you know.
Yes.
It's showing the sort of the people who are behind the scenes pulling the strings. And
Yes.
that's like there's no, it's not like the silliness of the Ninth Gate, you
No.
know, which is that's like pantomime, like theatre. This is obviously a bit more, it's taken a lot more seriously. You know,
Yeah.
there isn't that sort of like comedy aspect to it. And it again, it's still a theatre, it's still a show, but it's done in a way which is far more sinister. And that's like interesting that both of these directors took different approaches to showing these secret societies. And you know, that's not a like a conspiracy or anything. There are secret societies that have existed throughout, you know, human civilization, and to some extent still exist today. You know, you can be on your side of the fence and my side, which is just a sort of like you know, like I don't know. I don't know how to sort of say it. I don't know how to put it. It's like I just think it's all just, you know, a bit of silliness. I don't know how much of it to believe. Whereas you obviously have a very, very strong point of view. In this movie, though, it is interesting that Stanley Kubrick, the whole thing around Stanley Kubrick's work is this hidden symbolism. There are these hidden messages. It's this, you know, it's not just this one film, it's in multiple films.
Yes.
And it's like it's almost like all his prior films have been leading up to this point. You know, do you get that sense?
Yeah. And I think that so like if you compare the elite in this movie to like the elite in the path of the Ninth Gate. Now both these movies came out in the year 1999, which if you flip upside down, which is something the occult do all the time, it's been done since Leonardo da Vinci used to write backwards. It's 1666, right? Or 6661.
I'm sorry, I'm not buying that. I'm not buying
that's
that.
fine.
That was the intention of releasing these movies in 1999.
Okay, so let's just say that's coincidence. Let's just say that's coincidence.
Okay, we'll say it's coincidence.
So the difference for me between Eyes Wide Shut and the Ninth Gate is in the Ninth Gate, you're following Johnny Depp, who's on a spiritual path,
right?
Where he's on the path to Luciferian's left-hand path, which is the spiritual Luciferian way out of the system. It's for the people in the occult, the elite, that actually believe in Lucifer. Like they believe in that version of their belief system. This movie isn't that. This movie, and it ends with this ominous feeling of dread, and there's dread throughout the entire movie because Tom Cruise's character and the elite in this are not on the spiritual path. They're on the path to power in this world. And their network is more about just gaining power and having like sex for sex sake than
It's all about
having
lust and greed.
yeah, it's more about power, lust, and greed, and the intelligence network that exists around this cult. It also exposes the means and methods of the cult really badly. Not only do they expose like the child trafficking aspects in this movie, they also expose the art dealer network in this movie.
Oh yes. This is interesting. I really want, when you mentioned this earlier, I really wanted to sort of like you to um delve a bit deeper in this. So where did you get this from?
Yeah, so when we looked into what was known as Pie Fence, and people can see my documentaries on that, what we found is a lot of these people in the occult, people like Marina Abramovich, which people probably don't know who that is. She's the one who did all the spirit cooking, and she would do these we called art performances, but they are very, very creepy art performances where they do things like write on the wall in blood and make like very strange art performances. Marina Abramovich is like one of the inner core members of this group. And if you look at all the people around it, like the Sacklers, were the people who brought all the opiate drugs into the US. They run a series of art museums and things. And there's also James Alefantis, who owns Transformer DC, which is an art museum that was paid for by the Gwendolyn Caffritz Foundation. And the Gwendolyn Caffritz Foundation is what funded Nexium, which is NXIVM. And that was like a big Hollywood cult, very similar to what's depicted in Eyes Wide Shut. So a lot of people, when they draw like the connection points between Eyes Wide Shut and the current elite in our world, they go to Epstein's Island. But Epstein's Island wasn't, I mean, it was similar to what was going on there, but more Nexium, which was operating out of New York State, by the way, and had ties in with the same elite. Like Hillary Clinton was friends with these people.
Oh, okay. All right. Hey, reel it in. Okay. Remember this. Remember, we don't want to rock the boat too much. YouTube wasn't. YouTube did remove our channel for a little bit.
So
and we're a movie review channel.
Yeah. So getting back to the movie itself, the wife is into art, right?
Right. Yeah. Alice.
And Alice is into art. And at the very beginning of the movie, she is talking to, like, so in my estimation, the entire movie, like The Ninth Gate, is the path that you're following along. So like in The Ninth Gate, you're following Depp on the spiritual path. In this movie, you're following Tom Cruise on this sort of voyeur-like thing of how people are inducted into the cult, right?
Yeah.
So they're like, in my estimation, watching the movie, Tom Cruise is being guided into the cult, and his wife Alice is already in it. Like Nicole Kidman's been in it for a long time. That's why at the beginning of the movie, when she's like, "Oh, do you know anyone here?" And he's like, "No." She's like, "Well, why do you think they keep inviting us back here every year?" Right? And then she's talking to the guy who a lot of people think is Anton LaVey.
Yes.
Okay,
yeah.
I forget his name in the movie, but he's very similar. And Anton LaVey represents the non-theistic Satanists. So he's one of the Satanists, and his Satanist like group were the ones that don't actually believe in spirituality. They believe that like it's just like they're just like atheists. Do you see what I'm saying?
Right. Okay.
They're not like deistic Satanists. That's not the path they're on. So this entire movie, you're seeing it from the perspective of like the greedy, lustful, power-hungry elite, right? Not like, but they're showing you how like the Eastern magic from Aleister Crowley and like tantric sex practices were like brought into their like cult and then misused and turned into big sex parties, basically.
Okay, yeah, okay, I can sort of see that. It's kind of like maybe it's in a way Kubrick's comment on how like we still have the foundations of religion, but we strayed so far away from it that now it's all just about theater and it's become corrupt.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's an interesting reading of it.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
the guy at the beginning, the German guy, he's not German. He says he's Hungarian, right? And like that's the area, like the Bavaria Illuminati, right? That's where the Bavarian Illuminati is a real thing that did actually exist, not a conspiracy. They don't exist anymore, obviously, but that's where they came from. And I thought that was another interesting little nod, another really interesting nod to this elite and how they've been around for like a really long time. And I heard other people mention this is when they go into like the big bad, as one person called it, where they're all doing the naughty stuff and disrobing. They
Yeah.
have the symbol of the phoenix in there,
Oh.
which is from Rome, and that's the
Hmm.
symbol of Rome, and that comes from Babylon. It's the symbol of Phoenix, and the Phoenix symbol was one of the original symbols for Lucifer. Represents like going too close to the sun and falling back down type symbology. So that was another, and that comes from Rome. That's like a huge Roman symbol that you can see incorporated in
Hmm.
lots of stuff today.
Yeah. I guess there is like a lot of the whole corruption of Rome and the fall of Rome is kind of represented in that film. Um, yeah, I can sort of see that. Uh, so there definitely is. There's no hiding away from it. There's definitely something that Kubrick was trying to say with this movie about the elite and the corruption and um, how people get sucked into these cultish groups, whether they are practicing something sinister or whether they're just in it to, you know, go after their own primal desires and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's interesting that Kubrick died very mysteriously. I don't know whether there's like a mystery there. I mean, he was quite old. This film took 400 days to film. It
Yeah.
has the um, Guinness Book of World Record, like for the longest continuous production. Like Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman like moved here to the UK to like lived here for a good few years just for this one picture. I guess like Kubrick was such a perfectionist, like everything had to be, perfect. So he was ill maybe, and the stress of the film, you know, editing it. So I mean, what do you think? Do you think there was something a little bit more to do with Kubrick's death? Because I mean, you can go to the IMDb page, and the top trivia is that he died just 4 days after presenting to Warner Brothers.
Mm-hmm.
And the apparently the friends and family as well as cast and crew all claimed Kubrick's death was completely unexpected, and he never seemed to be in poor health whilst making a film. So, what's up with that? Is there something?
I haven't looked into it enough to like say for sure, but like the timing of it seems very suspicious to me. There's also talk of 25 minutes of the film that was edited out by Warner Brothers, not by Kubrick himself, because
Mm,
he died before being able to make the final cut. And with how much time, like like I listened to a couple of reviews of this and people were saying like Kubrick wanted to make this film for like 30, 40 years. And then
yeah, it was a very long time.
he
Yeah.
put so much detail into it. And there's so much in this film in terms of occult symbolism. Like another reference to Rome that's constant throughout the movie is Saturnalia.
Mm,
Saturnalia is what is now known as Christmas. So this
yeah.
was a time period in
That's
Rome.
interesting because the film is set in at Christmas.
Yeah, and do you know what Saturnalia was in Rome?
No.
Okay, so it was basically the movie The Purge. So for
Right.
24 hours on December 25th every year, you were allowed to do any crimes you wanted in Rome. It was a complete lifting of crime. So you could do anything you wanted. And people do caroling, they go around caroling.
Yeah,
Back
that's a happy
then,
thing. Yeah.
yeah, back then what it was the tradition came from men going around in groups singing while they raped women on the streets in groups. That's
Okay,
where that comes from. So this is like all in like
okay.
he was reading up on this type of stuff. There was like
Mm.
references to these occult books in the Stanley Kubrick archives
Yeah.
and things. I think this movie is such a damning expose of the elite that I think they probably did remove stuff that was important from the final edit. And that I don't know if they killed him or not, but it would make sense.
Well, I definitely think there's some footage that would help them explain the movie in some ways, because I think that's what so alienates people from the film is like the whole is it a dream sort of thing, and there isn't like a clear big reveal about who is who, and there's nothing really is accomplished in this movie. Like, it's just Tom Cruise wandering around, taking taxis, going to a party, and he never gets sees any action. So,
No.
like nothing is accomplished in this movie.
Tom Cruise never gets any. His wife does, though.
Well, does she?
See, I wanted to bring that up too, because so most people think the naval officer thing is just a dream sequence that she has. I don't think so.
Right.
Because she talks about how she woke up the next morning and hoping he was gone, and he was. Like, she like slept with him that night, she's saying.
I barely slept that night. And I woke up the next morning in a panic. I didn't know whether I was afraid that he had left or that he might still be there.
Possibly, yeah.
I don't know. I'm not 100%, but I'm pretty sure she actually did sleep with the naval officer.
Yeah. It does seem a bit like, I mean, women have fantasies all the time, just seems a bit like, okay, like that's not much of a big issue. Why is it playing so much on her mind? Like, does she really feel that much guilt? Because if she did, she wouldn't dance with the guy at the party at the start of the movie, because she wouldn't. That's more of a reason for Tom Cruise's character to get pissed off at her, because that's actually open in the open. People, the witnesses. So her sort of confessing about, just having those thoughts about the naval officer. That, yeah, I think maybe you're right. I think there is more to her story.
Yeah, she's, as you said on Twitter, she's actually the more interesting character. Because to me, what she represents is someone that was born into the cult. Like, she was already born into it, and that's why she's into the art, and she's like raising her daughter to be a part of it, teaching her
let's
daughter.
talk about her daughter. Like, the scenes that we see with her, it's all very like focused on appearance. Like, there's that, doing her hair, like, very sort of, I guess, teaching her how to wrap presents. Like, everything is, and then even when they're doing her homework, it's all about maths and how much people are earning and how much money they have. It's never like it's not really anything to do with progressing her as an individual. It's, you know, to have her own like conscious thoughts and to think for herself. It's all about this like almost like a robotic type of thing. You know,
Yeah.
the actions of brushing your hair and how she's, you know, and that at the end it's very disturbing. I don't know if like your reading of that ending where she's that Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman's characters are so caught up in their own thing they don't really notice their daughter is sort of like there's that those two older gentlemen who are hanging around in like the toys section of a department store, you know,
Mhm.
and then like Helena is sort of like with them and then the camera cuts away. Like, what's going on there? That is like,
Similar to the Chinese guys in the costume shop.
yeah.
Would you like to say hello to Dr. Harford?
Hello.
Hello.
Thank you, Mr. Milich. I'll call you soon. Bye-bye.
Goodbye, gentlemen.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
is very strange. Yeah.
And like one of the interesting things is if you listen to, I think it's the daughter, the underage girl that's being prostituted out by the costume shop owner, she whispers to Cruz, and if you listen really closely, she tells him, "You're going to need a cloak." So she knows about the parties.
Right.
And that's a huge missed point in the films, is the underage girl knows about the costume parties. So it's all a part of a pathway for Tom Cruise to end up at the parties. But
And
then
does she seem drugged to you?
I don't know. Yeah.
Because like the only time that we sort of like she's also very smiley and happy, like she looks spaced out to me, and like the only time that she actually speaks out loud that we can hear her properly is she says like hello, and it's like in a really strange like hello, you know, like there's definitely something going on there.
Yeah. Interesting. I wanted to ask you about this. So like one of the things that came out about this was Kubrick kept all the actors isolated from each other, even Tom and Nicole Kidman,
Yeah.
during their marriage. And he
That's
had
not
her
gonna help anything, is it really?
No, and he had her film the scene with the naval officer, and there's a lot of rumors that it was way more graphic than what was
like
actually
a
shown.
whole week of 6 days of naked sex scenes with a male model, and then apparently he asked them to pose in over 50 erotic positions.
Yeah.
Which is,
then Tom wasn't allowed to see any of this during the filming, but he was made aware of it. So it was, I think that Kubrick was like a part of the film, and a part of the genius of the film is that he was trying to wear the actors out psychologically, and he did it. And you can like see it in the film. They're like worn out and on edge with each other, and it looks real. It doesn't look like unreal. Like when Tom and Nicole Kidman are fighting, it really seems like they're really mad at each other, and like they're actually a married couple in real life. So it's like, ooh. And then they end up getting divorced later and all this. So it's kind of like Kubrick almost maybe like knew them so well that he knew like that there was these issues.
Yeah, like what could trigger them. Yeah. I mean, I think it really does work well that they are like a married couple, because you do get that like authentic, like that scene where they're arguing after like, you know, smoking pot and everything, and like people have like criticized Nicole Kidman's performance in that movie, like saying it's over the top and everything, but like when you're in an argument with somebody and you really do want to like hurt them and you're like angry with them, you do get that like animation of things, and like it does get over, like, you know, you do become sort of like, you know, acting, you know, going crazy and manic, and I can like see that in her. Like the I feel like they must have shot that scene so many times. I wonder like what else was said, you know, like were they allowed to improvise, you know, could they, or did they have to stick to the actual dialogue? But I mean, Kubrick was like a director that would take numerous and like dozens and dozens and dozens of takes in order to get the best reaction out of his actors. And I think obviously, like, I don't know whether that's a healthy way to do it, and whether that's the best way to push actors to get that performance. I just think, like, obviously with The Shining and Shelley Duvall, like he like brought her to the point of having a nervous breakdown, and that obviously, you know, isn't really right to do that. You know, you couldn't do that nowadays without getting like heavily sued. But she does give such a great performance in The Shining, and I think Nicole Kidman delivers such a great performance here. I mean, my curiosities lay in Tom Cruise's character. Like, he's just so passive, and like, I don't know like how we're supposed to feel anything for him. He just doesn't seem to have any like remorse at all. He just doesn't seem to be like sympathetic or anything. I feel like, you know, what at no point do I feel like he's thinking about his wife and daughter at home. I don't know. What do you think? Do you think he is thinking about them or not?
No, like it's almost like when he got the phone call while he was with the one girl, he was like annoyed, and then he was like, oh God, I guess I have to go home. Right.
Yeah.
But I also think that like the point you just made about how Nicole Kidman was being manic and stuff like that, as a
Yeah.
guy, like that's, you know, had obviously a bunch of relationships, you see women act like that way, and it's super uncomfortable. You're just like, could you please just like, you're thinking like, just calm down and talk like calmly. And she's like Amber Herding herself around the room, you know what I mean? It's but it fits and it makes you feel uncomfortable, especially as a guy. You're just like, like,
Yeah, that's
you know.
interesting. I feel more for her, because Tom Cruise is just such like, he doesn't try and comfort her. He doesn't try and like, you know, he's just so all he's thinking about is like, oh, I'm hurt, but like she's trying to confess something to him, and he's so caught up in his own, you know, ego that he doesn't take the time to like, I mean,
Here's a
obviously
question
then we
for
wouldn't
you.
have the film if
Yeah.
he had been like, oh, you're right, actually I have been a dick, you know, I
So-
probably should have paid you more attention and not been like flirting with random models who had just happened to be at this party.
Yeah.
You know?
The question is if Nicole Kidman hadn't had that conversation with him,
Yeah.
would he have gone on the path to join the cult at all? Or was she telling him that because she was already in the cult and she was guiding him towards it?
Maybe she is in the cult. I mean, that just make me think like, because what does she do during her day? Like, I guess that kid is at school, you know, like she's not working because her gallery's closed. So she, you know, what is Nicole Kidman's character doing? She doesn't seem really interested in anything, you know? Like, I don't see her sort of like, I mean, we don't really see much of her, but when we do see her, she's sort of like, if she's not getting dressed, or she just seems to be sat watching TV, you know, or smoking, or just there's nothing to her character, like in terms of motivation. She doesn't seem to have anything, any sort of life outside of those few scenes that we see with her from Tom Cruise's point of view, I guess. Or
Yeah.
just
And then when she wakes up from the dream sequence, she's able to describe the parties exactly.
Then there were all these other people around us. Hundreds of them everywhere. And everyone was fucking. And then I was fucking other men. So many. I don't know how many I was with. And I knew you could see me in the arms of all these men, just...
As if she had been participating in them, which
Yeah.
I think she has been participating in them for a while.
That is interesting.
Right.
So, how many times have you seen this movie? Or did you pick up on anything new this time round?
Yeah, so you pointed out the points, the lights, right? You saw this recurring theme of lights.
Yeah.
I noticed it as well. So it's
I don't know if I'm onto anything here, but I noticed that there's a string of white. What are they called in America? We call them fairy lights here. You know, the Christmas lights, but do they have a different name in America? Do you call them anything else, like trees? You know?
No, it doesn't necessarily matter.
Okay.
But yeah, but just a ton of white lights, like an uncountable number, basically.
Down the wall, which is in the first party scene. You see that sort of like the wall of white lights, and then you have like the more rainbow lights, as I'm going to call them, you know, the multicolored lights sort of going up a pillar, you know, so you have rainbow, white, rainbow. Okay. And then that's in the party scene at the very start of the film. Now that same sort of pattern, rainbow, white, rainbow, appears again, and that's in the scene where Tom Cruise goes to the fancy dress store. Why that sort of design of lights? It's a fancy dress store. You would think that maybe they would have something completely different, like the coincidence of having that exact same design of lights and that layout of lights, you know. Also, it's a bit of an unusual sort of thing to have, you know, in a fancy dress store. I know it's Christmas, but you have so many different Christmas decorations that you can choose from. So I was thinking that's very interesting. He's going from one party, he's getting ready to go to another party, you know. So there's like the sort of the flow of that continuous imagery coming into, you know. That's obviously a decision that's been made by Stanley Kubrick when it comes to set design, is to have that there. So yeah, I thought that was like something I hadn't spotted before. I just wanted to bring people's attention. If people have like an idea as to why that's the case, I think it.
I have an idea. I have an idea.
And don't shoot my little theory down, please.
No, I'm not going to.
Okay, go on then.
So, around the time that George Bush Sr., the dad, was giving his famous New World Order speeches that everyone has referenced in the conspiracy movement, he did this speech about 1,000 points of light.
I've spoken of 1,000 points of light, of all the community organizations that are spread like stars throughout the nation doing good. We will work hand in hand, encouraging, sometimes leading, sometimes being led, rewarding. We will work on this in the White House, in the cabinet agencies. I will go to the people and the programs that are the brighter points of light, and I'll ask every member of my government to become involved.
And he created a charity program that was called the 1,000 Points of Light program. And this was a reference to Lucifer, like from the occult perspective, it's a reference to Lucifer being represented by angels of light. And the 1,000 Points of Light program was directly tied into Pie Fence. We found it connected to various children's charities, art programs, and other things that were all connected to this network of like child traffickers, basically. So that's, you know, the 1,000 Points of Light program is a big part of their thing, is the points of light, the 1,000 points of light. So like you see in all these scenes, just a wall of white lights, which makes no sense unless you knew about these types of esoteric beliefs they have.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, I can
Right.
sort of see where you could make the connection there. Yeah. I just think it's very interesting that there's so many things that you could sort of watch with this movie and then reach some really interesting sort of like conclusions. I wanted to ask you, who do you think is behind the red cloak, you know, at the manor? The guy who is actually played by one of Stanley Kubrick's like long time assistants, Leon Vitali, I think he's called, and he worked with. His name actually appears in the newspaper clipping when Tom Cruise finds out about Mandy, the girl who overdosed at the party at the beginning, has died.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting that it says like. So I think like Kubrick is obviously having a bit of fun there, really, by putting his like friend into the picture.
Mm-hmm.
But is the Red Cloak actually the head of the cult, or is he just merely a puppet, a figurehead, really? He's just a spokesperson.
Yeah, so what I think they're trying to represent there is what's known to them as the Pindar, which is Pindar. And basically the idea behind that is whoever is doing the most for the cult gets to be the current leader, but there is no like actual leader. So it's like a snake with a bunch of heads. So like say the Pindar got taken down for something, then someone else would just take over that position. But also the reason I think he's wearing red and why all the references to Rome and the Rothschilds, and like this is an obvious like remake of the Rothschild ball, which if you haven't seen, there's images that came out from the 1970s of the Rothschild ball where they all wore masks and did similar things. And like the Rothschild family is directly tied into like the stuff I was talking about earlier through David Brock and James Alefantis. Like Linda Rothschild was like at parties with these guys, and they're called Rothschild, which means red shield, right?
Right.
So their whole name comes from the fact that Roman soldiers used to go into battle with red shields, and the Rothschilds became the guardians of the Vatican treasury, right? And that's why you see like the Pope looking type outfits in the occult, like they do black masses and things like that, where they do religious things that are like the opposite of Christianity, but they still sort of mock Christianity. Because these guys aren't like the ones depicted in this film are not deistic, they're atheistic, so they just hate Christianity, right? They're not like really doing their own rituals, they're just basically bashing Christianity and having sex orgies, which comes from Aleister Crowley's sex magic practices. Right?
Yeah.
So
I'm just thinking there aren't really any good redeemable characters in this movie.
No.
Like
None.
there's nobody who is like just a nice person who's just trying to, you know, make a bit of, even like Tom Cruise's like friend that he bumps into, that Nick Nightingale guy. He's clearly like cheating on his wife and kids, you know, like he's just left them behind and gone to New York for work, you know.
Do you think they killed Nick Nightingale, or do you think he actually got sent back to Seattle, like the guy said in the big meeting?
I think he's dead.
You think he's dead?
Yeah, I think he's dead.
Yeah. And do you like? I think the girl who's overdosed at the beginning, I'm pretty sure she's the one who sacrifices herself for Tom Cruise.
I don't think it's her. I think it's the other prostitute that he meets in on the street, because she's not there when he goes back, and supposedly she's HIV positive or something. She got, but in her room there's lots, if you watch it, there's lots of masks on her room, in her room. So I feel like maybe, and she's studying things like sociology and stuff like this, so she's got books on her bookshelf, so she's, you know, maybe or maybe it could even be the girl from the party, you know, at the very beginning, the one that's with her friend, who says that they're gonna take him to where the rainbow ends. Like, yes. All the women through this picture have the same sort of like color hair.
Yeah.
You know, so could be that. I think that's obviously a deliberate choice, but not decision by Kubrick. Could be so many different women.
Yeah. Did you catch the name of one of the girls at the beginning? The two girls, the British girls?
Yeah, one of them is Windsor.
So Windsor. That's right.
Yeah.
So reference to royalty, right?
Maybe it's just a common name here in the UK.
Is it? I don't know.
No, I don't
it's
think
not. Okay, yeah. I think Kubrick was trying to reference that they were royalty, at least one of them.
Or like British socialites or something.
Yeah, but I think you nailed something there a second ago where you said the girl. Well, okay, so like I think Mandy is the one that sacrifices herself because, well, if you look at like her physical features, like her breasts, they match perfectly with Mandy at the beginning. And like it's her way out of the cult. There's no way out of this cult. Once you're in it until you're dead.
But would she be really in the state after the previous night to be partaking in that? Because she looked pretty out of it, you know.
Yeah. Maybe not. I don't know. Like, it's a movie too, so who knows? Like, you know, you get really good recovery times in movies and drugs and stuff.
Yeah, that's true.
So
yeah.
But so the girl who was like the prostitute that brought him, she comes up to Tom Cruise. Like he's just walking down the street and she like is waiting there for him and comes up to him.
Yeah.
And like pulls him in. She's wearing purple, which comes from like Tyre and Tyre, whatever. Like the original color purple was associated with royalty.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Because it all had to come from these like very expensive seashells that came out of Tyre. So it was called Tyrian purple. And that's why in like Game of Thrones, the guy's name was Tyrion, which was he was the midget, but he was royalty.
He's the dwarf.
Yeah, dwarf, whatever. Okay. Small person. I don't mean to be insensitive. It's just, you know.
Okay, I know. It's fine.
Describing the person.
He was a tiny person.
Yeah, a tiny person. But anyways, like, so like they're referencing Tyrion with her, and she's got the masks in her apartment, like you said. So she's just another stepping stone on the path to the occult.
Maybe she's just like the backup girl they call, you know, when like the other girl's not available, they just have her on speed dial. She just like is the substitute girl. She's not the best girl, but she's still there if they need her.
Yeah. Or maybe she's there to get blackmail on people. Maybe. Because in the beginning of the movie, they like test both Nicole Kidman and Tom Cruise with blackmailable material. So like Tom Cruise is brought up to the room with the guy and he's like overdosed the girl. So now like they have blackmail on Cruise, and then the Anton LaVey character is trying to get Nicole Kidman to go up and do like stuff that they could use against her as blackmail.
Yeah. And I think actually good for her character because she doesn't do it. So she's a lot stronger in lots of ways than Tom Cruise's character, I think.
Yeah, but she is like basically like, you know, on the verge of doing it. And then she's only like just not here. Like she doesn't say no to him. She's just like not now.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe I just want to try and give Alice a bit more sort of like, sympathy. I feel a lot more for her. Maybe it's just like Tom Cruise's character is such a dick in this movie.
Oh no, he's not a redeemable character.
He's so annoying.
They're all bad,
like,
yeah.
It's just like, it's just like not. He just thinks like the way he is with like the taxi driver. It's just like rips the bill in half and like, oh, you'll get the other half. And like, it's such a dickhead. Like,
yeah,
geez.
Who does that?
And he's just like doesn't even think about like calling the cops about like the whole thing with the with Nick, his supposed friend. He gets that information, doesn't do anything about it.
No.
Doesn't do anything about the girl who is clearly underage in the fancy dress shop. And he's supposed to be a father, so and like doesn't really interact with his kids at all. Like I think so
no, he's a horrible character in the film. Like there's no redeemable qualities to Tom Cruise, and I think this movie like killed his career a little bit.
Oh, come off it. He's having a great time. Have you not heard of Top Gun Maverick? He's doing perfectly fine. He's doing all right.
All right. He went from making like serious films,
right? Okay,
just retreating back into action films.
Yeah, Mission Impossible, and
he's not made any serious films since.
No, I feel like this took something out of him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it also was like the whole scene where, all right, so like we talked about this off air, but like remember we were talking about the scene where the guys like shove Tom Cruise up against the car and call him a FAG, which is an F slur, so don't say it on the thing.
No. They're very homophobic towards him for no reason really.
So like originally his character was supposed to be bluish, but they took that out of the film, even though Stanley Kubrick is bluish, and like Tom Cruise's character is supposed to be persecuted for that, according to the original novel that this movie's based on.
Yeah, Dream Story. Yeah.
Kubrick took that out of the film, and then the guy who wrote the book, The Dream Story, has gone on like a crusade against Stanley Kubrick since this movie has been released about how Kubrick is like not a good Jew and all this stuff. Like he's really upset with Kubrick and the changes that Kubrick made from the book to the movie.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, the novel was written in 1926. So.
Or maybe I get it wrong. There's someone that worked with Kubrick on the film that's going around, and he's like very upset with the interpretation that Kubrick made from the book.
Yeah, Stephen King was very pissed off about The Shining, but maybe then people also had the same reaction to, because this is what's interesting about Kubrick as a filmmaker. I don't think he really wrote any original scripts. Everything was based on a novel. So Clockwork Orange was based on a novel. 2001 was sort of based on a novel. Barry Lyndon, The Shining, Full Metal Jacket, and even Eyes Wide Shut. It's like he kind of takes the concepts of these novels and these ideas, and he sees their potential and makes them better in a way.
Yeah.
It improves on them. I love The Shining as a book. I think it's a really great novel, but it's not The Shining that is Stanley Kubrick's The Shining. They're two different things. I think that's what he does here. He like uses the core like narrative of the book Dream Story in order to create something that is expanding on the world of the the story. So, and yeah, I think it's interesting really, like how the rumors of Tom Cruise being in the closet, obviously. Didn't South Park famously do something?
Yeah, that was way later.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
it's always been something that's like kind of dogged his career, has been with him since the very beginning of his career, and I can't understand where these rumors have necessarily come from. I don't know.
Either, yeah.
No, I mean there was that scene in the original Top Gun where they're playing volleyball, but why is it only Tom Cruise that's been affected by these, and not these rumors, and not the rest of the crew? Because they all part cast, really. They all were in that scene. But it is really interesting, and I think like that's obviously, also kind of maybe sends Tom Cruise's character down the path, is that he has to prove his masculinity and his status as a man, as
Did you also notice that the Eyes Wide Shut party was LGBT friendly?
It was, which is great.
was-
Representing I guess it's Pride Month, so I guess the movie is something that could be,
because there was like in the scene where he's being brought down after they're like, oh, your driver needs to talk to you, right? And they're walking him down through the party. There's a whole ballroom where everyone in the ballroom is like women dancing with women and men dancing with men.
yeah, everybody's having a bit of fun.
Yeah.
I feel look, it was the 90s. People just didn't have like access to the internet. It wasn't, it wasn't great. The broadband wasn't really particularly good, so I'm just trying to picture what it would be like if this movie came out today, set in like 2022.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what do you think? I mean, if you had to speculate, what do you think Kubrick was trying to tell everyone with this?
I think he's obviously trying to tell us that there are some very dark and sinister groups at play. I don't think that's something that's like the film's not trying to shy away from that. It's not just implying that, it is actually showing it happening. There is like this cult sort of shadowy group that's at play in New York, or the New York of the film, because obviously the film was set in London. So all of those sets, everything you see has been built, which is amazing.
Yeah.
Like it's people have said like, oh, it doesn't look realistic, but I think it looks fantastic,
It does seem like New York, but watching it, knowing it was filmed in London, it definitely looks like London, not New York.
I know, but I still think it's very impressive to do that, to build it all,
Yeah.
So I definitely think he was trying to say that there's definitely some sort of secret society, at play. I think really he was trying to maybe use the film as like a warning to sort of say like about relationships, about like communication, about like what is healthy and what's not healthy, about marriage and exploring that. I think he was also trying to like maybe make men aware that women are sexual beings as well, and there's obviously a lot of guilt that Nicole Kidman's character is holding on to, and then, you know, that she hasn't been maybe able to freely express herself, and that's why she might have gone out and done naughty things with sailors or naval officers. And I think maybe the film was sort of was warning about how if because if we as adults are so caught up in our own dramas and our own secret lies, and it's inevitably it's the children that are going to be hurt at the end of the day because of what happens with Helena at the end of the film. And I don't know, like I'm hoping that, like, you know, nothing really bad happens to her. I know she's just a fictional character, but it's just like it leaves me with such an unsettling feeling in my stomach. Like it doesn't even matter about the other conversation that Tom Cruise's and Nicole Kidman's character have, because that doesn't even matter. That's just like an afterthought. What is the real ending to the movie is the child being led away. At least that's what my mind thinks about when I think about the ending of the movie. So
Yeah.
I don't know. It's really hard. I mean, Stanley Kubrick was such a genius as a filmmaker. He's like personally my favorite filmmaker. Like, I think there's just so much of his work which can always be re-explored and revisited. And I don't know if we're really well and truly know exactly what he was trying to say.
Yeah, I don't think we'll ever really know, which is why it's such a great film, because like it's always left up for various interpretation. And I'm sure we'll get comments of people having their own completely different interpretation of the film.
Yeah. You're
which is
welcome.
Great.
Yeah, no, I really love that. So I mean, I just really think it's an interesting movie that I think kind of needs you to watch it every 2 years or so.
Yeah.
You know?
My personal feeling on it was, with Kubrick trying to show us, especially like in The Shining, which I think he's depicting the Bilderberg group in that movie. And
Are you trying to tell me it's not about fake moon landings?
I'm not sure. I mean, I think he might be connected to that stuff a little bit, because he was meeting with like the head of NASA and things. And I don't feel like the moon landing footage is authentic, but I do feel like we've been there. So
okay.
we'll not get into that tonight.
We're gonna get into
that
The
for
Shining.
Yeah. But just in The Shining, they show the Bilderberg like East Coast elite, right? And in this movie, he's showing you that and he's showing them in every film, like, you don't want to join these people. Like, you don't want to end up having to haunt the Overlook Hotel, or you don't want to end up like Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman at the end of Eyes Wide Shut. And like, to the average movie goer, I think Kubrick knew that like the average person going to see this film, their eyes would still be shut at the end of the film. Like, they would see this film and still not understand any of it. Like, they'd just like, oh, there's a bunch of naked people having sex, like whatever, right? But to the person that's able to see through the occult and able to understand what he's trying to show you, what he's showing you is like, once you're taken into this cult, there is no escape other than your own death. And it ends up with your own daughter getting trafficked and your own wife getting like sexually like used by all these other men. So like, it's not something that you want to be in. It's something that is really nefarious, and it's the power structure on this planet, and it's not a good thing. That's why the eerie, ominous feeling throughout the entire film, and it ends with this like very uneasy, like dreadful feeling that you have when you leave the movie.
Yeah, it's in a way. Do you ever get like, you know, when you watch certain movies and you instantly want to like go have a hot shower?
Yeah.
it's like that. I kind of get that reaction. Or I need a really good cup of tea.
Yeah.
So I'm like, or a hug. You know, it's like as much as I appreciate this movie, it does leave me in such an uncomfortable way. I don't know whether it's more so because of like being a female, just this idea of being exploited, you know, um, kind of left me feeling, especially now that since obviously the whole Epstein and all these other groups have become like in mainstream mainstream news, has been revealed since like the release of Eyes Wide Shut. It is something that is definitely almost like a warning, like like Kubrick was trying to say, like, look, if we don't sort of like focus on what's important, which is like a family unit, looking after, like, parents looking after their children and remembering it's not all about money and sex or lust. It's about what is, and I think it's interesting. I still think it's so interesting he set this movie at Christmas, which is supposed to be a time where the family is meant to be together. I mean, family is in, whatever you regard as your family, whether that's like step parents, stepchildren, guardians, whatever, just the family unit of people that you love and are close to you. Is that, Christmas is supposed to be the time where we bring people together, and Tom Cruise's family has become fractured. And it's come to a point where him and Nicole Kidman's characters may have like reunited, but they've lost their child in the process.
Yeah.
So, I really, sorry, just like there's so much to explore with this movie. It's just like probably one of my favorite movies to discuss, and I'm so glad I got to discuss it with you, because I think like we both pick up on so much, and it's exciting to sort of like chat to someone and be like, oh, did you see this? Because the last time I tried to watch this movie with someone, they said it was boring.
Well, it's definitely not boring. And I have heard a lot of film critics say that, though. They say like, oh, it's so long and drawn out and it gives you time to think too much. And it's like, don't you think that was intentional?
Yeah. It's not, films are not like supposed to necessarily just be pure escapism.
Yeah.
No.
Definitely not this movie. This movie's definitely made to make you think. It wants you to think, and like it wants you. The other weird thing is like the lighting is so like dream spacey almost, with like the overwhelming. Why do you think he did that? As like a, you'd know more about this than me.
Oh, with the fairy lights and the whole like
dimly lit. It's a lot of times the lights almost overpower the actors. They're like so bright in the background.
Yeah, I think a lot of the time as well, the use of certain colors of lights, like the blue light for Nicole Kidman, she's often bathed in blue light, and when we see her flashback or Tom Cruise fantasy or whatever it is, thinking of her with the naval officer, that's with a blue hue. I think that's like, it's kind of like a bluish. It's not
black and white.
No, it's not. No, it's not exactly black and white. It's more of it has a bluish tint to it. And I think there's something there with the blue. It's supposed to symbolize something. I'm not sure what necessarily.
In Masonry, you have the Blue Lodge and the Red Lodge. So I don't know if it's some sort of reference to that or not. I don't know.
Yeah, so you have, and then you have obviously all the rainbow lights. They're a mixture of colors, but the main focus is that red light. I think red is obviously the red color of temptation, and the red is seen at the party with the red cloak, and there's a lot of red there. So
this is another thing I want to get into, the rainbow symbolism.
Yeah,
so what do you think the rainbow is symbolizing in this and in The Ninth Gate? It's in both films.
Well, in lots of ways, I think it's interesting. Now, we have, I don't know, like the whole Over the Rainbow sort of thing with Wizard of Oz, and that is obviously like a film about dreams, and she fell asleep and was transported to a dream world where it's all magical, and she has to go down a yellow brick road to find her way home. And I think maybe that's something here, like this is Stanley Kubrick's version of The Wizard of Oz, and Tom Cruise is going over the rainbow and following a road. But unlike what happens to Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz, she realizes what home truly is, which is family with her aunt and her uncle, and she chooses that rather than stay in a fantasy world of Oz. Tom Cruise doesn't have that realization here. Maybe you could say, oh yes, he sort of does, but I don't think he really truly does. He just So that's what I think the rainbow here is trying to say. I think it's a nod to the Wizard of Oz and that world of entering a world of fantasy and dream. But it's not a fantasy. In a good way. It's like more of a nightmare.
Yeah. So remember in the end of Ninth Gate, Johnny Depp's walking into the white light and he's like entering the white light. So the rainbow represents the light spectrum, right? It represents all the colors of visible light. So to me, what they're trying to show you is the path of, like, once again, Lucifer representing by the rainbow, which has been taken directly from God's covenant with man. So after the flood, God said, I'm going to show you a rainbow, and that'll be representative of the fact I'll never flood the earth again. And the occult have taken the symbol of the rainbow and used it in countless things because they're always trying to like reverse the Bible. And that's why it's used in like a lot of different symbolism. And like Alice in Wonderland, for example, the occult loves that movie, book series, all that. Like Aleister Crowley wrote a lot about it. The like maps, the minor attracted people have created what's called Alice Day, which is their celebration of their activities every year, and they use Alice in Wonderland themes for that. And
yeah,
the other
can I just want to say, fuck you, people. Sorry.
Yeah,
anyway,
I know, they're gross.
It's disgusting.
And then interestingly, throughout the film, and I didn't know this till you told me, but I guess Kubrick's wife did a lot of the paintings for the film.
Yeah.
And a lot of those have Alice in Wonderland type themes to them. Right. And then there's the theme throughout the movie, like the daughter gets taken at the end. There's the young girl in the costume shop. Like, I think maybe some of the stuff that was deleted by Warner Brothers, which is owned by people all connected to this group that was outed by stuff like the Epstein ring. I think maybe they took some of that stuff out. Like there's rumors they took out satanic pentagrams from the floor and stuff like that. But I think maybe it was more about like the child aspect that they took out to try to hide.
Maybe. I think as well, like someone said, or I read somewhere, it was because it was too sexual and explicit. But I feel like knowing Kubrick as a filmmaker and what he had done before, especially with like the likes of Clockwork Orange and other films, I don't feel like that would have stopped him from putting that into the movie. Like he wasn't a filmmaker that was about making money, because he even pulled A Clockwork Orange from, that movie was quite a big hit, but he pulled it out of distribution in United Kingdom because of death threats that he received. So he pulled it from cinemas. So and then he had he never really had commercial success really in the terms that we think of a big blockbuster, you know. Like even The Shining, I don't think was like a huge hit in the terms of like what we consider like, you know, $1 billion movie now, you know. So I feel like that's just a very weak excuse. I don't think that's necessarily the reason why. And if that's, I mean, now that we've moved on with like how we are as a society, like, you know, we're very much more like there's far more sexually explicit movies that are being made now that are in, you know, in cinemas, and especially what you can get on the internet nowadays. Why hasn't there been like those scenes added and then a special edition being released? Do you know what I mean? If that's a real reason, because that's one way to get the movie more, you know, if I was Warner Brothers and that was the case, I'd get those out and then you're making more money because people are going to buy the special director's cut. So what's going on there? Like that doesn't seem like a really legitimate reason. So maybe you are onto something. Maybe there is something a bit more damning in that.
In the deleted stuff, Who knows? I don't know. I mean, it's a theory floating around the internet, so not sure. Who knows?
We'll just add to that.
Yeah, we're just fueling the fire, you know. But anyways, I think that pretty much wraps up. I mean, we could go on for hours.
Yeah,
probably.
It doesn't. We feel like I don't feel like we've accomplished anything really. I feel there's so much I want to like. You know, we could do. Yeah. So.
But maybe we'll come back to this again if people really like this breakdown of Eyes Wide Shut. Maybe we'll do a second episode or something.
Yeah, maybe.
But,
yeah.
I think, you know, we're about at the hour mark now, so I think we should probably wrap this up. I do want people's feedback. We had a really great comment on the last one that we did.
Yes, which was really great. I really am grateful for people leaving like, you know, links and stuff and asking us to check out these things. I find it really great. I like to sort of go and read some stuff. I don't always necessarily agree, but I am interested in people's takes and what they feel is, you know, what their favorite theory is on certain movies. So yeah, please do.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you very much, Bianca, for taking the time to review this movie with me.
Thank you.
And thank you to the audience for taking the time to listen. So
yeah, thank you so much. And let us know what you would like us to break down next, you know.
Yeah. And then remember to
like and subscribe, please.
There you go. Sounds better if you say.
Yeah.
All right. Well, take care, everybody. Have a nice day.